We just continued along our merry way doing our research. In 1989, I called for my Canadian partners to come up with the money to build a plant. They had 22 other investments other than me, and all of their other investments had gone sour. And their credibility with Legal and General Assurance was being questioned by Legal and General. They said, "Do you really know what you're doing?" And so they came to me and said, "Dave, we want to tell Legal and General about the work you're doing." I says, "You can't. You signed confidentiality agreements." In fact, the president of Legal and General Assurance's venture capital firm sat on my board of directors in Phoenix. His name was Peter Simon. He actually sat there on my board, but he was in a confidentiality agreement. Couldn't talk about it. So what they finally did is they said, "Dave, we really need to do this. How about if we all have the guy doing the evaluation agree to sign a confidentiality agreement too, and then we have the evaluation done, and then you decide whether to let it be released or not." So in 1989, Brian Lerwell, who was Precious Metal Consultancy over in England, was engaged by Legal and General Assurance to come into Canada and the U.S. and evaluate my technology. He spent 10 days. He saw everything. He saw the geological studies, the core drilling, the mapping. He saw the chemical studies and all the separations we were doing. He saw them in Canada and in Phoenix. He went to GE, saw the fuel cell studies, the record keeping, the work going on there. He went to the patent office, reviewed the patents. He discussed with me personally everything about it. And he says, "Dave, this is unbelievable. It explains everything that we don't understand in the industry." So when he got his report all written, he sent us a copy back for our review, and we took it before our board of directors. Well, Bill Estes of Estes Homes in Phoenix was actually on my board of directors. In 1989, we were in a really severe real estate slump in Arizona. And Bill Estes was kind of having some financial problems. Bill was also a small investor. And Bill said, "Dave, if we release this report to a $26 billion a year mutual fund, they could put up so much money I could not match it with the amount of money I would need to come up with. And so I'm refusing to let it be released." So Legal and General Assurance paid for one of the top men in the world to evaluate our technology in 1989. I have a copy of his written report, and Legal and General never got to see it. So needless to say, Legal and General disappeared. They said, "We're not funding anymore. We paid for this report, never got to see it. So, everything's off, no more money." So in 1990 through 1993, I had to litigate with my Canadian partners to get this company back that I had given them to get them involved. They didn't contest the litigation, but it took 3 years to go through the court processes before I finally got the judgment back. And it was, in fact, in 1994 that I could first talk about this. I want you people to know that this knowledge of this material is something that you just couldn't talk about in your own community. If I go to people in the farming community where I live and I mention anything about this to them, say, "Dave, I really have to be someplace. I'm sorry, I really have to run. We'll talk about it another time." And they're gone, just like that, gone. It was in 1994 that this fellow at a place called Global Sciences, he invited me and he said, "Dave, we'd like you to come back and talk to us." And that's where I went, and I actually came to talk to a group of about 200 people, and these people totally understood what I was saying. And it just blew my mind that there was 200 people who could understand this. In 1991-92, we was handed a book from my uncle on alchemy. And he says, "Dave, you need to read this book." And I said, "No, I don't." I said, "That's about alchemy, and I'm not interested in the occult." He says, "This is when the church was involved in it. They got all messed up with philosophy and everything." And I said, "No, I'm not interested in that." And he said, "Well, Dave, you ought to read it because it talks about a white powder gold." And I says, "What?" He says, "Yeah, it talks about a white powder gold." Well, one of the things we had done with this is when you understand that this is like a stealth atom, that the atom can be there, but it doesn't identify by any instrumental analysis. It's like a stealth plane. The stealth plane flies by, and you look up, you see it fly by, and yet the radar machine says there's nothing up there. So it's really there, but the machine just can't see it. These metals are really there, the machine just can't see them. And so in 1991, I said, "All right, hand me the book." And I began to read it, and it talks about a gold glass. Well, 1160 degrees, the white powder of gold fuses to a gold glass under vacuum. It's clear as window glass. And here's talking about gold glass. I said, you know, is there any chance that this white powder of gold could be the white powder of gold? Then I started reading information about this. And one of the things I found in the Hebrew writings is that the name for the golden tree of life is OR means gold of the highest light. ORMES, ORMUZ is the golden tree. And then I found out in the book of Isaiah, it says a latter-day David is the one who's to plant the golden tree of life that brings about the 1,000 years of no disease or illness. And, you know, I just begin to say, wait a minute, something's going on here. And so, you know, we begin to understand that there's a whole lot more than just a new discovery of materials. It, in fact, is another form of matter, and it has implications that relate to nature and, in fact, many things other than high technology. There is one other thing that I wanted to tell you about superconductivity that, in fact, I forgot to tell you, inasmuch as I now know that you know about quantum coherence. There is an aspect of superconductivity that is very much different than electricity in addition to things I've already shared with you. In fact, when the Meissner field grows around a superconductor, two superconductors can actually sit at distance from each other. They don't have to touch. As long as the Meissner fields touch, the energy between the two superconductors can actually act as one. Now, it's real important. The electricity it has to touch before electricity can flow. If you separate the contact, it can't flow. Superconductors can actually sit at distance from each other, and literally if the fields touch, the electricity as light flows back and forth between the two as one. Okay, this is what they call quantum coherence. So even though the atom's over here and another atom's over here, if in fact they are in resonance with each other and their Meissner fields touch, then they're as if they're one. That's not something we're used to thinking that way. We assume everything has to be closed for there to be electrical conductivity. This isn't electrical conductivity. This is superconductivity.